The Sony A7 Mark I was released in 2014 and it was quite a big deal back in the day. The reason for that is because of the 24.3 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, Pion CX image processor, hybrid autofocus system with 25 contrast detect and 117 phase detect points, sealed alloy and composite body, 3-inch tilting LCD screen with 1.3 million dots, XGG electronic viewfinder. You can film in 1080p, 24 frames per second up to 60 frames per second. You got one SD card slot, microphone input, headphone jack, HDMI and USB, and all packed in a nice little body. But is it still worth buying in 2020? What's going on, guys? Gary Aman here, back at it again with a new video. First of all, thank you for my new subscribers to this channel. I really appreciate it, and also that you are following me on Instagram. So thumbs up for you guys. For the ones that are new to the channel, my name is Gary. I am a photographer based out of Amsterdam, and I actually live close to Amsterdam, and I like to share my experience with photography gear and stuff on YouTube. So let's begin by laying down some questions that I have for this camera, such as how does the body feel like, and what is the image quality like, how is the video capabilities or video quality, how does that look like, how does it performs in autofocus and stuff like that, and also the last question is how does it actually compare to the Sony A7 Mark III. So let's begin. Lots of stuff to talk to, lots of stuff to go through. But first of all, let's begin with the body. As you can see, it is a nice little compact body. It kind of reminds me of the Fujifilm X-T3. It has a little small grip, not the best grip in the world, and I can imagine that people with larger hands that may have a little bit of issue with this, and their pinky might be floating somewhere. So I think a battery grip or an extension grip might be something worth considering. For me, or for people with smaller hands just like me, this camera actually feels quite good in the hand. So for me, I don't really have an issue with the small form factor, and I actually really like it. The outside is compact, as I mentioned. It got one SD card slot, which is really quite disappointed. So I wouldn't recommend using this camera for important stuff or once in a lifetime moment stuff. So for weddings and stuff, I wouldn't recommend this one. The battery life of this thing, it has a really small battery, and I really suggest, or actually recommend, that you buy at least one extra battery if you're planning to shoot a whole day with this camera. So the body is quite nice. I don't think it's weather sealed at all. It feels good in the hand. I wish it has a joystick. It doesn't have a joystick, so moving around the focus point is a little bit frustrating because you have to use this wheel and you don't have any touching capabilities. So that's a little bit of a disappointment as well, but you must be aware of it if you're planning to buy this little camera. Alright, that's about it for the body. Next topic, the image quality. How does it look like in regards to photos? So here's a little example, and as you can see in the example, just this one, it looks really good. It's shot in RAW. I don't know in what kind of settings I've shot in, but as you can see, the image quality is really good, and I don't have any complaints in that. So, you know, the image quality is good. I don't see anything you can shoot in RAW. The color science is a little bit different in comparison to the newer Sony cameras, but if you shoot in RAW, you can adjust the photo in post in any extent that you want. The dynamic range is good, and I don't have any complaints. And one of the beneficial things about having a full frame sensor is that you can shoot in higher ISOs and lower light conditions and still have a pretty clean image without any grain whatsoever. So that's a cool thing. A full frame sensor is always nice to have, especially in a little small form factor body like this one. So what about the video quality? I'm going to show you an example in a couple of seconds, but I just want to tell you that this camera does not have any picture profiles, so it doesn't have any S-Log profiles or HLG or Cine profiles. So be aware of that. You are then a little bit limited in regards to the options in video. Also be aware that this does not shoot in 4K. It doesn't have any slow motion capabilities or abilities, so be aware of that as well. It does have 24 frames per second, up to 60 frames per second, but I'm going to show you some examples as well that the 60 frames per second, if you slow that down, it doesn't really look good at all. So here are the examples, and as you can see, the 60 frames per second slowed down is really weird and really bad, so not usable at all. But then again, the 24 frame per second in 1080p, here's an example with the same setup as this, and then you will see a little different story. Alright, so this is the footage from the Sony A7 Mark I. How does it look? I think it looks just fine, and the sound as well, it's okay. And yeah, what do you think? Is it suitable for these talking head videos? And to me, I think it does. It's not 4K, it is 1080p, 25 frames per second because it's Europe. So yeah, test. And as you see, it looks really decent and it sounds very good as well, so no complaints in that. So very useful for YouTube or for instructional videos maybe, but I wouldn't really recommend it for using it for professional work or for client work or anything like that in regards to video. Alright, so that's about it about the video. Let's talk about something also very important, that is the performance of this camera. How does it perform? The best way to show you that is with examples, of course, but before I'm going to show you the examples, I want to tell you that this is still an older camera, a 6-year-old camera. You really must expect a slower autofocus and slower handling of things. The shutter itself is actually quite slow as well, or it has a different sound than the newer cameras, so I'm trying to do my best to let it hear. As you can see, it's not as snappy as the newer cameras. It's just like a real shutter that goes up and down. Hear it again. And here how it is if you go on a faster shutter. So I'm not that fast, right? It doesn't have a real fast pace shutter. But then again, it has older technology, it is an older camera. Alright, so if you're buying this camera, be aware of that this doesn't have the best autofocus out there. The continuous autofocus is not really that good as well, as you can see in examples. However, the single shot autofocus is really good, very reliable as well, and there you also have eye autofocus, but only for 1 second, so just one press of the button. It doesn't move around or doesn't follow the eye, so just on one focus area. So single shot autofocus is reliable, it has eye autofocus, but be aware that it's just for one shot. So the performance is not the best, but I can imagine that if you're somebody that does a lot of landscapes or food photography or just non-moving objects, then this camera might be something worth considering. Alright, we are coming to the final topic, and that is how does this older camera compares to the Sony A7 Mark III. For the people that don't know it, the Sony A7 Mark III is the latest version of the basic A7 series cameras, and that one has 4K video, 120 frames per second, slow motion features. It has a very fast autofocus system as well, eye autofocus in continuous mode. So in overall it is the better camera, but I just wanted to show you how it compares in regards to image quality. So here are some little side-by-side examples. On the left side you can see the Sony A7 Mark I. On the right side you can see the Sony A7 Mark III, and as you can see, side by side with the same lenses, with the same settings, they both really look the same. Alright, so let's conclude this video by answering the biggest question, and that is the Sony A7 Mark I still worth buying in 2020? And actually I've got two answers. The first answer is yes, and the reason for that is because of the small form factor body with the full frame sensor, high image quality, and if you are a photographer that really likes to do non-moving objects landscape photography, product photography, then this camera is really something for you. But on the other hand, is the Sony A7 Mark I still worth buying in 2020? Answer is no. The reason for that is because of the performance is not really that good if you are somebody that likes to do a lot of things, a lot of variety of things. So just like me, when I do weddings, sometimes I do photos, but also there are occasions that I do a lot of films, so weddings films as well. So the ability to have just one camera that can do both in very fast and modern ways, that's really nice. And this camera does not have it, and the autofocus is not very fast. So for fast moving objects, and if you also like to do a lot of video work, then this camera is not for you. Alright, that's all. Thank you again for watching. Subscribe if not already. Like the video. Comment down below. What do you think about the Sony A7 Mark I? If you got one, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about it? And use the link in the descriptions as well to buy something from Amazon. Then you can support this channel as well. And I will be seeing you in the next one. Alright, that's all. Good luck.